Hello, everybody. Well, since Joshua was unable to participate, I decided to, do a little boxing chat shit on my own. Yeah, just gonna comment a little on the fights last night. All right, let's wait for people to arrive now. Yeah, I know I'm a little late, but I first didn't even, wasn't even gonna do this, but then I thought, what the heck, let's do a little talking. Well, hello to our Skywalker box, so salute, my friend. Yes, I didn't get to see the American card, but did you see the Fury versus Nagano? I wonder. I saw that Sharky Foster stopped that guy. What's his name? In the last round. Impressive. Yeah, since he's not a puncher really, but anyway. Yeah, he did. Exactly. He looked like he didn't really put much effort to this fight. I mean, it showed. He didn't put much effort and he didn't train enough, obviously. Obviously, he took this too lightly, I guess. Yeah. Rocky Hernandez, right? Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard that the championship rounds were the best. Good evening to Alan. Salute, sir. Yeah, starting to fill up now. That's good. Yeah, well, those fights on the Fury and the Gun undercard, none of them lasted very long, but yeah, Martin Bacoli, he was Bacoli. Hmm, nice. Oh, salute to Bruce Gas, Boxing, Jazz, and more. Nice to see you here, my friend. Yeah, there's genuine respect. All right, thank you for being here, CD, ED. Yeah. Yes, so, yeah, Martin Bacoli, he just, it's amazing, for a man of his size, he also looked out of shape last night, but he really got the job done, on Takam. That body shot in round four was wicked, man. I mean, he really got ability. And when you got ability, when you are that big and strong, then you can also score knockouts. You don't have to be like, Deontay Wilder. Oh, pozdrav. Ah, I'm alright. I know I've been kind of tired the last 3 days, but that's because over. I've been very active, working out and doing other things as well. It's going all right. So we are talking of last night's card, of course. Fury in the gun. I mean, when Fury went down in round three, I was like, "What the heck just happened?" I mean, I would think pretty much everybody was like that. Yeah, it's amazing, really, how Nagano, how well he boxed, there. Huni, oh yeah, Tabiti. I heard something about Tabiti won, didn't he? Andrew. He is a former cruiserweight contender. Yeah, he looked good. I was just talking about that. He's really got abilities, He's got a lot of ability. He is a really kind of, overweight, big, huge guy, but he's really skilled. I love the way he throws his punches, and lands. Makes it look so easy. Yeah. Oh yeah, Arslan Beck. Yeah. Yeah, he didn't have much of an opponent, but still, he's just a beast, of course. I would love to see that fight. Why not? Frank Sanchez is one of my favorite heavyweights, actually, right now. Worley, yeah. Worley versus Joyce. I don't know. Anyway, who won the Fury fight? Well, officially it was Fury, but I thought that in reality, Nagano won, really, in that fight. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know if Worley is ready for Sanchez. He might be a little too slick for him, I know, but maybe, yeah, he should fight a few more fights first. A couple more at least. The problem with Worley, he's not really that hard to hit. He has to work on his defense, definitely. Because that kind of fighting, it won't cut it, against the best guys out there. He got hit quite a lot last night also. Yeah, but he still looked good, yeah. He came back to dominate, to knock the guy down. And then you see that guy Adelaide, he was so furious with that stoppage. He kind of hit the referee a little bit. I mean, I was like, what the heck, man? What a punk. So I was happy to see him lose. Yeah, yeah, he's not. He's just, he's rather good offensively, but his defense sucks, I guess. Yeah, yeah, he's just too inexperienced. He only had 12 fights coming in, so I mean, Worley didn't have more than 16, but still, he's been there against some better fighters. Still, a little better. Just a second, gotta get my drink. Ah, thank you, Bruce. Bless you too, my friend. Yeah, I really feel worn out, but I was also very bored. That's why I decided to do this. Just gonna, yeah, we'll see how long this will last. Or we did white collar boxing. I'm not sure I say it anymore. Yeah, yeah, of course. That is evident in the way he moves and all that, kind of pretty unorthodox. Yeah. He is very fast. This again, his hand speed prevailed. It decided the fight pretty much in the end. Just the way he just right after that clinch, he just bang, bang. That was it. And then, of course, the follow up. Yeah. Yeah. Parker, I mean, I always liked him, but sadly, he never really got to fulfill his talent. Apart from beating Andy Ruiz Jr. and Chisora twice, Could have won, like for instance against White. He should have won that fight, I think. But yeah, I think sometimes he's just a little too nice actually to be a boxer, a successful one. Yeah, but in that Dillian White fight, I don't know what happened. He didn't look himself. He didn't look to be in the best shape. Of all boxers today, he is probably the nicest guy out. I would say. So you know her, huh? Yeah. There were a lot of the elite were all there. I was surprised how many. Actually, one guy who sat there, like right to the right of the screen, the center. He looked like the manager of Croatian football team national. But I don't know if it was him. Probably not. Zlatko Dalic. Yeah, Fraser. He should fight Fraser Clark now. Knock him out. Also, then as you said, there are Dubois. Maybe Dubois would have been a better fight for him because he's easier to knock out than Joyce. Forget the Zhang. Zhang is just a monster. He's not human. Zhang fight, but now I guess Joyce will be easier for others as well to knock out. I reckon. So why? But anyway, Worley versus Dubois because both are young guys, and kind of equally tall. They have a similar fighting style, but only Dubois is more muscular, more buff. Moses Itoma, yeah. Oof, sorry, oh, shit. Yeah, that was even though his opponent was just crap, but that kid can really punch and finish off his opponents. Yeah, Moses, smell the roses. Yeah, and who else did we have there? Well, we also already said Makhmudov versus Zhang. What about that? That would be some brawl. Two monsters. Or even Makhmudov versus Hergovich. Why not? Yeah. I really really have a lot of sympathy for Frank, especially because of what he went through, both in his career and his life afterwards. You know what he went through. I don't have to go in details. He's been through some rough times. He's got a lot of personality, Frank Bruno. Shannon Briggs is a very colorful guy as well, but he has done a little too much trash talking and stuff like that. Did you see? Yeah, well, now he's a little too late. I mean, Froch is retired also. Maybe that would make sense now. I mean, it's only like 5 years between them. Calzaghe is born in 72 and Froch in 77. Do I think it hurt the sport of boxing? No, I don't think really. I mean, only in a way because a boxing champion got, let's say, dominated by a non-boxer. In that way, yes, but otherwise, it was just good for boxing. It was a really exciting, fight, a crossover fight, and yeah. So yeah, that is a kind of complicated question. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he was always in great shape as a boxer. I remember when I watched him first time against Tyson, I was in awe of his, build. They showed his back, and it was so ripped. Oh man, I was like, I would like to be like that one day. Oh, Usyk, of course, Usyk, no way. I mean, let's face it, Usyk would have been too much for most heavyweights who are that big, that like Fury and Joshua, of course, as we've seen. They cannot move like he can, of course. And you can see, I mean, why did Dubois came much closer to knocking out Usyk than Joshua did? Why? Because he's still, he's not that huge, he's not. But anyway, I mean, it it happens sometimes that the big slow guy lands the big punch on the smaller and faster guy, but not very often. So Fury would have only had that kind of chance to win to if he could catch him, with something big somewhere in the body to the body probably, and yeah, slow him down and yeah, that's what I think. But Usyk is just too fast, too mobile, too tough, also too good. Yeah, I thought that decision was just nonsense, especially 96, 94 was it for Fury or 93, something like that. I don't know. I mean, come on. No way, man. No way Fury won that many rounds. I'm not too convinced. Yeah, well, that was his first heavyweight fight, or second one. Wow, we got a super chat by Jose Melendez. If there was ever a day where I wish that I was with you in a live show, it's today. I'm glad that you are cordial with Fury because last night pissed me off. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I know. I know. Really, I mean, yeah, he might be a bit beyond his best. I know. Yeah. Yeah, I think. I don't know really. Maybe, or he just didn't train hard enough, but he's also approaching the age where fighters usually start to slow down, 35, 36, something like that. But it depends. Some don't. Some can fight till they are like 40 very well. But yeah, I don't think he's one of those. It's usually these defensive technicians, that don't take many punches that last longest, of course, like Floyd Mayweather, for instance, or well, Joe Calzaghe. I don't know. He didn't. He retired at 36, so. Golovkin is an how to say is an something else. Yeah, exception. Yeah, he's like 40 years old. He's crushing all these guys. Yeah, of course. As I said, I mean, it was both a good and a bad night for boxing. And good because the fight was exciting and all that, but bad because a boxing champion was made to look bad by an MMA champion. So yeah, Fury kind of let boxing down. He did, and he had all these legends come out there to meet him to in the that tunnel when he was coming in the ring, and then he goes in, puts on such a beautiful. I mean, it wasn't a beautiful performance, but it wasn't a good one. definitely. He started out pretty well, but then after that knockdown, it seemed to go downhill totally. He kind of lost his, steam. Yeah, Hopkins, yeah, he's just a great example, really. A guy, he was like 50 and still, beating some good fighters. It's just clear he didn't train at all, and it wasn't. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It wasn't. I know that rounds 4, 5 were really like dominated by Nagano, and Fury was, getting a beating more or less. He was taking some big shots, a lot of shots. I mean, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I really don't know if this is just one bad fight for Fury or I think he's probably going downhill now, and one of the reasons is that last year he didn't really fight anybody that really gave him a good fight. So yeah, I mean you gotta keep you a champion, especially must be kept on his toes always. If you allow him to fight several weaker opponents, he goes mellow. That's it. That's the end of him. That's the end of him. Yeah, yeah. It's just been, and he's just been a handful. It's just been too much lately. With his circus show. And yeah, like his mouth is writing out checks that his fists cannot cash. Like Fury, I mean, sure, Hill and Andy Lee seem to be. Yeah, I know what the hell Andy Lee is doing here at first place. We didn't know what to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Fury, I mean, when you have a guy of his size, you gotta keep him as active as possible, And now, but no, of course, he's got many other things on his mind. He's got his children and his family. His whatever his extracurricular activities. He wants to be. The problem is he wants to be both a boxer and a star, like a celebrity. And that's not good. Boxers should never live like celebrities. Marvin Hagler never, liked that. He never lived like a famous person. That's why he ruled so long as a champion. Champion. He would go out there, run always, in army boots, and when he was at home, when he wasn't training, I can imagine he just stayed at home most of the time and didn't go out and that much and didn't enjoy the sweet life, the public life, and only occasionally, I bet. And that's how a champion stays sharp, you know, and not by going to Las Vegas or wherever. You're just living la dolce vita, living the high life. That's not how you're gonna, stay sharp. Of course not. Yeah, and then he's old man, he's an he is a handful himself. He's just embarrassing with his antics, He's gonna fight this guy, he's gonna fight that guy, Mike Tyson, whoever, Lennox Lewis. I mean, he did fight. He was a boxer himself, but he never was that good. So what makes him think that he can fight now and beat someone like Mike Tyson, who is only 2 years younger than him? Yeah, all right. The chat has gone quiet now. Yeah, let's see what else is coming up next weekend. I don't know if we have anything really. Part of it was that I don't think Fury thought they need one. I believe that he thought, yeah, and he was eating marshmallows and Big Macs during training. Yeah, the same like as with James Stoney, he would like go on an eating binge, and still he thought he could be a world champion, heavyweight champion. It was so funny. I saw an interview with him when he just moved up to heavyweight. He was like, "Yeah, I can eat more, hamburgers and donuts." That's what he thought was great about being heavyweight. Yeah. Hmm. Well, you got just a second. I was going through Johnny Nelson season. Yeah, yeah, he didn't respect. I mean, he didn't take him seriously. Well, we got FA Jaguar returning next weekend, actually, against some guy called Goodall. Yeah, a big guy, 6'6", Joseph Goodall. All right. Anyway, just wanted to see what we have coming. I am a massive fan of Fury, and the trilogy versus Wilder was one of the best things in it. Yeah, of course. I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, he got too much credit for those wins over Wilder. And you cannot. Everybody just proclaim, especially the British people, the Brits. They said, "Oh, he's the greatest heavyweight today. The best." But no, I mean, you gotta beat. He should have at least beaten Joshua also before he was able, to be called the best heavyweight in the world. Of course, I mean, it's not enough just beating one top fighter, one top guy, a champion. And somebody like Wilder, who mostly fought, guys that were either past their prime or nobody's ever like no good at all. Yeah, yeah, that was just rubbish. I hate it, especially Chisora. He never should have. I don't know how the hell they allowed him, how they allowed that fight, really. Because Chisora had already lost to Parker twice and hadn't had a really relevant fight for a while. Usyk, I guess, was the last one. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It really pisses me off. I mean, he was supposed to fight Joshua in 21, and then that fell through because Wilder wanted another fight. All right, so you fight him afterwards. You knocked out Wilder again. He should have fought Joshua next year, right? Like in spring or summer 22. But no, who did he fight? Chisora. Oh man, that sucks really. What kind of message are you sending, with that? Oh yeah, Corina Vasquez. Oh, that's gonna be great. I don't know. Muratala. Mikhailin. Alright, that's the guy. The guy who called himself Noel Yevor before. That's the guy I know. I believe he was supposed to fight also actually last time instead of Badu Jack. He was supposed to fight Makabu, but then Badu Jack got that fight and he won. Wow. He kicked Makabu's ass. I mean, Makabu he's just finished totally as a fighter. In that fight, he was so slow, and he had a couple of decent rounds, but he was just totally destroyed in that fight, totally outclassed by Jack. I just don't like the fact that he got to hold on to that belt for so long without fighting anybody really, really like, notable. Yeah, just half-assing it, his championship reign. But in cruiserweight division, unfortunately, one can't do that because it's not that stacked. Now, it's getting a little bit more stacked with Opetaya and a few other guys, Riakpur and yeah, who else is there? I forget. But yeah, not Okoli. Oh, Chris Billon Smith. Yeah, that's right. Okoli is just got. I mean, oh man, he's terrible to watch. Really, whenever he doesn't knock out his opponents early, he stinks the fight up. All right, Masternak. That's pretty amazing because he's been fighting for a long time now. Really like 10 years ago already. He was fighting for. I think he was the European champion back then. I mean, come on. He's been like, I remember when I first heard of him, probably 2012 or something, 11 maybe. I don't know. Yeah, what's the point? Okoli's gonna stink it up again. Of course. Yeah. I mean, Makabu, yeah. He was really, that was the first time he was exposed. He was just destroyed in 3 rounds by that guy, by Bellew. Just getting a message from somebody. It's really a joke how little interest fighters still have. Yeah, it's all about the money and staying a champion as long as possible. It's sad. Oh, random acoustic thoughts. How are you, sir? Yeah, nice to see you here as well. The champions are not as they used to be, most of them. And you see, Demetrius Andre is one of the worst examples. I mean, the guy who held like two different world titles and never really fought. You know, I don't know if he ever fought a single like elite level fighter really, so far. I mean, Liam Williams, he's a solid fighter, but it's no hardly some like really elite level, like world beater. So yeah, I hate those fighters. I mean, he has the power, but then he drops the guy, knocks him down, but then cannot finish him off. That's so fucking frustrating. I don't know. He's in super middleweight now. Wasn't he supposed to fight somebody? I think Benavides. Yeah, he's gonna fight Benavides. I don't know when, but I trust he will get a beating. He's also kind of past his prime. I think by now. He's been fighting for a long time, actually, more than 10 years. I believe he's like probably I don't know 34. Oh, hello, Mrs. Gilbert. How are you? Nice to see you. Thank you for dropping by. Unfortunately, Joshua is not here. I don't know what happened, but I just decided to have a little stream on my own. Happy Sunday to you. I think maybe even he said something, but that was maybe a week ago or more about not being here now, not being able to be to yeah maybe, but I'm not sure. I did speak to him today. Yeah, yeah, they did change, but still, by now he would have been here. Yeah, because we do it around 8 usually, but yeah, now it's well past 9. Oh, he's out of town. All right. Yeah, yeah. So that's what he was saying to me. Yeah, yeah. Well, next time then for sure he'll be here. Yeah. So yeah, not gonna go on that much longer. There isn't that much to say talk about. Yeah, you can just gonna send you a link. Uh, Here is the link. Hop on. Maybe I better put on my headphones because it's gonna be loud. I mean, it's kind of late here. All right, here's random. Just a second. Gotta put on these headphones first. All right, here we go. Hello there. How are you?
What's up, boss? How you doing, brother?
Hey, well, I'm all right. How are you?
I'm just getting up, getting myself to get collected to work the night shift.
All right.
But I saw you were live, man. I wanted to just say hello. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch. I thought you just went live. I'm a little scattered. Got a story of my life.
Yeah, that's all right. I
I
kind of
just
feel.
wanted to jump on and laugh at the MMA community and welcome them to delusion, because like I was a long time MMA fan, right? Like I became like a hardcore fan in 2008, so I
Mm,
was already sort of a casual fight fan. But it's a long road, and you see a lot of delusion. And the reaction to the Fury Ngannou freak show fight is hilarious to me. But from joining, sort of coming into the boxing fabric a little more in the more recent years, I've seen the parallels between the fandom, and a lot of the complaints cut both ways. And right now, a
mm,
lot of the MMA guys are like, you know, Ngannou won. He beat the this and this. And like they're just sort of like plowing through the reality, kind of like at the aftermath of the Fury Wilder stuff with the gloves. Like there's people just they have their narrative. They're going to run hard with it. And so I
yeah.
just wanted to jump on and say that the ridiculous behavior for the boxing listenership you have that doesn't pay attention to MMA, the delusion is all through combat sports. It's almost like cheering a team. It's not about rationality. And the
Yeah.
reaction to this fight where people are saying they're acting like, Fury isn't getting up there and hasn't been active. And his recent fights, is he fighting killers in their absolute prime who are technically sound? I mean, what's his most recent fights? White and three against Wilder. Is that right?
Chisora. Yeah. Wilder and Chisora also. Yeah.
Right. So like, so the fact that Ngannou, who's in good shape, a big fella,
Mm,
was able to come in and do as well as he did, it says a little bit about both of them. But depending on the position someone wants to take, you know, they uh, they just take the line they want and run hard with it and just don't listen. So I've just been laughing. I haven't really joined in the discussions. Like that picture of the knockdown, they'll be celebrating that like he just beat Prime Joe Lewis.
yeah. 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 I mean, Fury was out of shape, obviously. I mean, he hadn't trained properly.
He's getting
I
older.
guess
What is he in his mid 30s, 35, 36?
35. Yeah. He was, he got 35. I mean, he turned 35 in August. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, so I mean,
So, he,
you've taken a look. You and Josh look at the history, so like historically, 35 is old. 35, I think that's how
yeah.
old Johnson was when he lost to Willard. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
35 is getting up there, but certain guys can defy age. Ancient
yeah.
Archie, so he was world class. He got himself in a heavyweight contendership as an old man.
Mm,
But
yeah.
but usually when you get up to that age, you just look more human. It happens to everybody, and I think that's what's
Mm,
happened to Fury. He's also living that comfortable life. Was it Hagler talking about silk sheets? He's definitely
yeah.
living that
Yeah.
silk sheets.
Yeah, I was just talking about Hagler before. I said, I mean, that's the way you stay sharp as a champion. The way Hagler lived, he wasn't, didn't go out to Las Vegas every weekend. Surely, I'm sure he would, go out and run and stay in shape, and yeah,
That's right. The great Joe Jeanette was kind of like that. Family man, didn't really party, kept himself in good shape. And you can see pictures of him when he's older, training people. He's losing his hair, but he still looks to be
yeah,
in really solid shape. My area of study, Sam Langford. He smoked while he trained. He smoked while he fought. He wasn't.
well, yeah,
He sort of got burnt out on training, so
hmm,
he saw a decline because of that. But he was still world class long after
yeah,
he was past his actual best. And I think that's what we see with some of the heavyweights today. You can slip past your best, but you ramp up into a fight a year, fight every 2 years. You can look pretty good, but if you give those guys one of these old school schedules, like you got 13 fights this year, there is no time off. Factor
hmm,
in travel, so it's a different kind of sport, and I think people can fool it. So when you may miss someone's decline because they're barely fighting anyway. So
hmm,
Fury, he went in there with a motivated guy, not a young guy, but a motivated guy who was pretty big, very, very strong, very good grappler compared to Fury. Like if they fought in MMA, it would be the easiest fight of
yeah.
Ngannou's career. Tackle him,
It's
arm triangle, that's it. I mean, or
yeah,
punch him a couple times, elbow, when he turns, choke him out. Like that's okay. That's not Fury's sport, his specialty. But
yeah. But
it's I love the chaos though, man. Chaos is
what's
sweet.
funny What's funny is that Fury was actually the one doing most wrestling last night. I mean, he kept grabbing Nagano, and I don't know why he did that, but
I think
especially in the first 4 or 5 rounds.
I wonder if he was trying to get him tired. Like, okay, you're not used to the boxing version of clinch work, and he
Yeah,
underestimated what the MMA fighters go through as far as the way they have to train and the multidiscipline training they go through to be able to do all that positional jostling and cage work and potentially having to get up off the ground. Like Fury hasn't had to sort of like his muscles haven't been tested in the way that okay, a guy 240-pound guy is on top of you, you're on your back, you're against the cage, he's punching and elbowing you. Now you have to get up or you're stuck here for 4 minutes in a row. So when
yeah,
he that was a mistake on his part, but it's also he was probably didn't like the punching power. He was trying
yeah.
to stifle him, and it's like that's the wrong guy. He didn't have that option, so stylistically, it was a little tough for him. I only gave in the lead up. I was only giving Ngannou like a 1 in 30 chance, unless he was taken lightly, then maybe 1 in 15. So he hugely outperformed my expectation.
Fury just he seemed to miss many of those big punches. I don't know why, but he just of course he fought Chisora and White, White is about the same height as Ngannou, so it can't be just that he is not used to fighting much shorter guys. I don't know really, but he just didn't look sharp, last night. Yeah, in the first round, I think he landed his best punch probably at the end of the round. Yeah, kind of
Yeah,
shook. Yeah, he
I
done.
suppose like he's a very rich man. He's a celebrity. He doesn't
Mm,
fight very often, so what's he doing in between? We know he gets he's been kind of fat, but he's like gets kind of even slimmed down. He's kind of chunky. He's not.
yeah,
We hear a lot about the old school, how these guys were out of shape and these guys were nutritionally devoid and they just couldn't compete today because of nutrition. Like, these guys most of these guys have love handles. Not Joshua, not really
yeah,
Usyk so much. Look at an old picture of Bob Armstrong or George Byers. Some of these smaller, like thinner or smaller guys who were competing at heavyweight, they could. When Bob Armstrong got old, he got heavier, 220,
mm,
230. But like when he was in his prime, he was crunchy. And I think today they just don't fight enough that they have to stay in shape. And that if you
yeah,
sent them back in a time machine,
yeah.
it's going to be ugly. How are you going to go
It,
20 rounds when you look pregnant? And you're just going to, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to go fight a guy who's ready for 20 4 times a
yeah,
year plus a bunch of 10 rounders? I don't know. I'm not trying to shit
yeah.
on anybody, but I do love the chaos and the chaos of
Mm.
Fury looking bad. People may read the wrong lessons, but I'm over here laughing. I'm entertained.
Yeah, when you are that size that Fury is, it's hard to stay in shape. I also that is an extra, burden, I guess, for him, and being such a giant, and I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely. I mean, he's a huge guy, so he can carry the
yeah,
weight. But if someone like Ngannou's a big guy, and he's actually a very crunched down version of a big guy, so there's not a lot
yeah,
of he doesn't have a lot of fat on that body. So
yeah. It's
being really
just,
big and relatively soft compared to your crunchy opponent, not
mm,
necessarily a good thing. Sam Langford. Just to bring up Sam again, he spent a lot of his prime beating up bigger guys than himself, but who weren't
yeah,
in his kind of shape. And then
yeah.
also
That's the
fighting great
thing.
fighters who are crunch. Sam McVeigh, a crunchy 210 pounds for a lot of their series, like absolutely ripped 210, small waist, no fat. And
Yeah,
so if those guys got soft, they would be as heavy as some of the guys, some of the medium to large size guys today. I don't think, what
yeah.
about
That's
Fury, Jess Willard? How do you think that fight would go?
yeah. I was
1915
just
Willard, man.
thinking about him. Yeah, when it comes to these huge guys. Yeah, I don't know really. I think probably Fury would have knocked him out, but
Yeah, I
who
think so
knows?
too. But
Yeah,
you never know. I mean, Willard, how many rounds did he go with Johnson in the Sun? He went a
uh,
lot of rounds with Johnson. Johnson knew how to
yeah,
punish. He wasn't the
like
hardest hitter, but he could crack. He could get
18
you
or
coming in.
something. Yeah, probably. Yeah, close to 20. I think it was 20, but it was something like maybe 18.
23rd or something. It was a lot. It was deep into
Yeah,
the fight. It was deeper than Fury's ever been in a professional match,
yeah.
even ignoring the smaller gloves then. But so who do you think? I think Nagano would be crazy to go back to MMA for these tiny paydays and bullshit fights. Just
Yeah,
especially he's signed to PFL, who don't have a significant heavyweight division. Now there's rumors they're trying to buy Bellator, which would give them a heavyweight division. So maybe that could happen. That would be cool. But Who do you
Yeah.
think Ngannou should box, man? He's got to take that money, man. Don't go back to the BS sport. Don't go back to the
Hmm.
junior sport. Stay in the majors. Get the
Interesting.
big paydays. I'd
Yeah.
like to see him fight Wilder.
Yeah.
Wilder's a
Why
hard
not?
hitter, but he's kind of wild. I don't know. I like that
Yeah.
fight.
Wilder is wild, right? I mean, yeah, and he's not that hard to hit either, So actually, Fury is usually harder to hit than Wilder, I would say, probably.
I would think so. Wilder
Mm,
commits more, so there's more opportunity to exploit
yeah,
like
kind of
overreaching and things.
the same thing that happened to Fury last night. I mean, Ngannou can do it to Wilder also, and just counter him just perfectly with a left hook, bang, and yeah. I think Wilder doesn't have the same chin that Fury has either. So yeah,
I'd
no,
agree. I'd agree with that.
mm,
Uh, and I think I don't think I'd pick Ngannou to necessarily beat him, but I would love to see that fight. I love freaky fights as long as they don't
yeah,
screw things up. But I think in this case, Ngannou's performance against Fury, if we're going to maintain that Fury is one of the absolute top heavyweights in the world, Ngannou performed in a way that, yeah, you can throw him in big fights, because if he was a scrub, he wouldn't have done better than these other supposed top heavyweights against Fury. So unless Fury completely fell off and this is the end for him,
mm,
it seems like Ngannou at a minimum has shown that he can be in those big fights and not just be there as a tomato can. So I'm all for it.
yeah,
I love it. If he had gotten schooled and he got another big fight that gets in the way of rankings and things, I don't know about that. But this is pretty cool. How did you score the fight,
yeah.
may I ask?
Well, actually, I don't know really. I'm a little torn, but I thought that Ngannou kind of did enough. At least I thought it was 95, 94 for him. I would say because of the knockdown, of course. Yeah, probably. Mm,
That's cool. I don't really have an opinion, but I often don't form opinions during the fight. I'll go back and watch it
mm.
again, like watching to score it rather than just enjoying it.
Yeah, because some rounds were kind of close. Because which round was it? I think in round 9 or nobody did almost anything in that round. I think, or it was the last round. I don't know, but anyway, at least one of them could have been scored even also. So but
It
that
can be
goes
tough.
against Fury. So yeah,
That first Fury Wilder fight, those first like probably 4 rounds, not a lot happened. They both landed a
yeah,
little bit. They both threw a tiny bit. So really, it's like a lot of those are the kinds of rounds where people just pick their favorite. They go, well, he did enough, close enough.
yeah.
So, and that's where you get sometimes people call robbery, but they're not. If both
No,
guys have a crap round and basically just sit there, it should be, take a point off of both of them. It's a 9-9 round because you sucked it up. Can't say that's definitely for anybody. So yeah, I think that's where some of it comes from. Plus, you have a lot of gamblers online who love to deny that they made stupid bets. If it's a close fight and it
yeah,
goes against them, they're like, "Oh, that was easily the other way." Okay, buddy, whatever you say, man. Shouldn't have put the
yeah.
rent on it.
Some people just underestimate certain boxers way too much. I mean, that's never good. Never a good thing. And they go, no way he can win. This my guy can't lose. He will knock him out. And then they bet on the knockout. Even that's kind of silly. Because you know how boxing is. There is never a guarantee of a knockout happening, especially in a big like top fight.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's true. And also, I think like some people when they gamble, they whether or not they can afford it, but they're doing it to just enjoy it more. It's like a way of throwing support behind their guy. So it's not
yeah,
necessarily about wanting to be right or be profitable long term. Because from my understanding, I'm not a gambler, but from my understanding, from just studying poker and things like that, just for fun, the thing is, it's about the odds
mm,
relative to the odds of something happening. It's what odds are you getting. So it's not about whether your guy is going to win or lose. If you're
yeah,
betting on a massive favorite, even if he wins, the odds that needs to outweigh the odds of the upset, so that you're not just giving money away long term. But that's probably a bit of a boring way to bet. I think people just have their favorite and they go, he's going to do it. And that's how you
yeah.
end up with some crazy odds. But
Yeah, I mean,
It's all good.
I would never bet on boxing because of that. We have seen so many upsets the last couple of years. Also, I mean, wow, man, just amazing. I think especially in 2021, there were a lot of upsets going on, happening, and yeah, I
Do
mean,
you, do you think it has anything to do with like sort of this post-pandemic
yeah,
thing we're going through where people were less active than already the inactive norm by that time? So now they're really people have
yeah,
changed their approach, and it's like it's the expectation is so low as far as activity, it's affecting performances.
yeah, probably. I think it probably has something to do because there must be a reason. I mean. Yeah, now I'm just thinking of all which upsets happened. I just know that there were a lot of upsets that year, and I know of Warrington versus Lara. Well, that wasn't the biggest upset probably going on happening that year. I think, yeah. Well, anyway, there were just a lot of them. So
Also, I think it seems like boxing's been putting together a lot of big fights lately,
yeah,
and so that means somebody has to lose. Unless they draw, that means someone has to lose. So it can feel like a lot of turmoil just because
mm,
big stuff's happening in a sport like with MMA, where mostly not in a tournament format. So it's not straight line brackets. You don't know who someone's going to fight. So when they do
yeah,
make all these big matches and someone has to lose, like how many years was Spence Crawford one of the biggest talking points in the sport? When I started to get back into it, I was like, oh, okay, who are these guys? Because I got out of it when Calzaghe and Hatton were gone. I was gone
right.
until until the pandemic, when I started listening to Boxing Librarian and Scrapbook and really got into the history. But
Mm,
so that fight was a big then, and it stayed big. They finally had it, so one guy had to lose. So a lot of that feels like turmoil to people who've been riding on that undefeated record. But that's the joy of the
yeah.
sport, is what is the release of tension. It's like rock and roll. The joy is the release of the tension that you're building up to. It's not just the tension. So they need to have the big fights, and it's just tough crap to whoever loses. That's what it's a sport. It'd be like you wouldn't want the NFL to like cancel the Super Bowl because they like the conference champions so much. Don't want
Right.
them to lose. So someone has to lose. That's the idea of sports. So I'm all for all the big fights, and I just want to see Fury fight Usyk or Joshua. They've been brewing for years.
Oh yeah, yeah, really. That's a shame. I mean, Fury should have fought. They had agreed to fight in 21 also. Yeah, was I mean Fury and Joshua, but then Wilder, he ruined it all. And yeah,
It was there. There was huge money on the table, but sometimes huge money on the table, guys have a better risk to reward ratio. It happened with Jack Johnson. He had 50,000 on the table to fight um, Sam Langford and Sam McVeigh in Australia. Turned it
yeah,
down,
yeah,
because he had other plans. He had other stuff going on, even if it wasn't necessarily the same total money. It's if it's easier money, and I think we see guys do that. It's understandable they do it. There's huge money, and all their people want to get their little slice of it, so everyone's advocating for the most money. But it can be frustrating. I don't think anyone should get a pass on doing it, because going back in the decades, they didn't get a pass for doing it. Ali, like we say now, like Ali, greatest ever, and all this heavyweight. Man, guys were roasting him. Like, why won't you fight guys of your own caliber? There's great interviews of people roasting him on TV for fighting guys who we know were good guys. They just weren't greats.
yeah,
People want to see the
yeah,
greats. And now, because of the highlight era, I think people forget that, yeah, that criticism has always been there. They shouldn't give him a pass for making easier money.
yeah,
Just
and
they can do
even
it, but you can't do it silent. You can't just sit there and enjoy and eat crap as a fan.
yeah.
I don't think.
I mean, and even if Ali could take criticism, I mean, he pretty much fought everybody. I mean, I think most of the best he could have fought.
Right,
There
he
aren't that.
absolutely did. His resume is ridiculous. He fought
Yeah,
most of the top 10 guys across 2 decades. I mean,
mm,
it's there are larger heavyweight resumes among the
yeah.
greats, but they're, as far as a better one, I mean, Ali is the guy. He's
I
the
mean,
guy in
for
that rich
instance,
era.
yeah. Well, I hate when people say, "Oh, Larry Holmes was maybe just as good." I mean, no. I mean, come on. Larry Holmes didn't fight so many guys. Actually, there are so many he ducked, like Pinklund Thomas, for instance. Pinklund Thomas, he didn't fight. Didn't fight Greg Page, who was back then, very like considered one of the best. Even though later on he didn't, deliver. But then he also didn't fight the South African Hussein. Jerry Hutsia, yeah, that's right. And there were just so many, quite
Right.
many.
It's relative to the strength of competition.
Tony Tubbs also, very clever guy. Didn't fight him Holmes. Mike Tyson did and knocked him out. So you know,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting how over time it gets distilled, so people have the fondest memories and they forget the games in
yeah.
between.
It's
When
like he fought everyone. No, he didn't really. If
right,
you
Ali
really,
is that guy. Sam
yeah,
Langford's he did
yeah,
actually bar Jeffries, although that Jeffries was retired. I think that might have been PR. I don't know, but Langford 15 fights against Sam McVeigh, 14 against Joe Jeanette, 18 or possibly more against the great Harry Wills. And then, I think he had 12 or more fights against battling Jim Johnson. He had a bunch of fights against the Joplin Ghost Jeff Clark. Like even with people barring him, he was fighting some of the most elite fighters in the game again and again. So he had how many tough fights? Some of these
yeah.
other
I
guys,
mean,
their filler fights take 6-8 months to come around. It's like they used to bang those
yeah,
out in 2 or 3 weeks and get back to the top fights. So the sport has
yeah.
changed, even though it's still very, very tough. I wouldn't do it.
It
You
is.
couldn't
I
pay me to
mean,
get in there.
yeah. I mean, you cannot blame, of course. I mean, even Holmes did fight many also the best, and not that, but he didn't. There are a few that he ducked really, but that doesn't get talked about too much today, because he's been really given a pass because he lived in Ali's shadow, and also people feel sorry for him. And but you gotta be real, you gotta be,
Right.
like,
Maybe some of his supporters who see his brilliance, his own brand of like fight genius. Because I
yeah,
mean, no one denies the skills, even if you can question the resume
mm,
or the fight to fight bookings. But I think because his supporters feel like he gets underrated, and some of his detractors feel like he's overrated. Rocky
yeah. I don't
Marciano's a
think
guy
he's
like that.
either.
Some
Yeah,
guys will
yeah.
pick Marciano against everyone. Other people would
Mm,
say he only beat old guys. You take a realistic look, you say, well, he was great, but he didn't necessarily fight in the richest era. And
yeah.
there were other eras with more large guys. We didn't see him fight a whole
And then
slew of
you,
like enormous people or, like, so
yeah,
it's the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think that's the same today. I don't think Fury's like totally gone back, but I don't think he's what he was. He's an older guy
yeah.
now, and he's fighting a motivated dude who's been in
And
some
then,
wars. Nagano, he may not have been in boxing fights, but those little 4-ounce glove battles where guys can elbow you, they can knee you,
mm,
they can kick your legs, and then you have to try and punch with the sore legs. Yo, he's been through some wars, so I think he underestimated him.
yeah. And then there's a question of really kind of controversial victories. People, those fans, really counting them among the best wins. I hate that also when that happens. Like, I mean, for instance, you had like Lennox Lewis in the rematch with Oliver McCall. You have seen that probably. You know what happened there. McCall just was a total wreck, like psychologically. I started crying, wouldn't fight. So
Well, that's the one where he turned away.
yeah, yeah. And then
Yeah,
they
that's
say,
bad.
yeah,
That's a shame.
Lewis avenged all his losses. I mean, come on, you can't say he really beat McCall fair and square. If McCall quit, in that fight. So
Right, it's sort of a context that's, you know, it's. I guess there's a line, like where you say how much is random chance and how much is just tough cookies. That's the name of the game, like if a
yeah,
fighter comes in, he looks a little off. Is it his own fault? Do we put it up to
mm,
circumstance? How much does that weigh against the triumph of the other party? Like we're going to see that with Nagano. You're going to see, like on Twitter, especially the MMA community is pretty crazy. They're pretty rabid, and they do close
yeah,
ranks. So in a fight like this, they're like, "This is terrible for boxing," even though boxing just put on this massive thing, right? Stole the attention of the
yeah,
sports world for a moment. They're going to
yeah.
use
It
that to
was
say, "You see, boxing is over." It's like Yeah, because the lineal heavyweight MMA champion just came over and made a huge pile of money boxing. Everyone else is a broadcast still trying to box because that's where the real money is. What a loss for
Yeah,
boxing. It's
and
crazy.
MMA can never. I mean, UFC can never put on such a show. I mean, of that magnitude. I'm sure it cannot because while because I think that UFC, I mean MMA in general, is much more popular in the West than it is, in the East. I believe still, in Asia and Middle East, and
Yeah. And
because
the
over there
contracts are very
boxing
restrictive. The contracts are
boxing
so
will always be
restrictive.
bigger. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So if MMA got the Ali Act, there would be the potential, but the UFC promotes specifically the UFC brand over everything. That was the conflict with Nagano. That's
Yeah,
why he basically he did the one thing that they are always trying not to do is have a champion leave before he's super old with that
yeah,
lineal with that title thing. So this is something unusual,
yeah. I
but
don't know why Dana
they
why
need the
he really.
UFC to be the point because that's how they're making
Yeah,
their money. Dana just does what he's told. He's got bosses.
yeah.
It's the
I'm
Endeavor
sure.
Corporation or whatever they changed their name to now, but Ari Emanuel and
Yeah,
his partner, they call the shots. Their
I
lawyers
know
sign the
who
contracts.
owns.
Dana's the lightning rod.
I
He's
don't
not the
even
guy.
know. Don't even know who are the owners of UFC now. I knew before it was
It's
the.
Endeavor. They're Hollywood agents. They were a
All
Hollywood
right.
agency conglomeration
Wow.
with them. They were actually the representatives of the UFC. So the main guy
Mm.
from Endeavor, he negotiated like the Fox deal for the UFC.
Hmm.
I'm not sure about the
Wow.
ESPN deal. So they're their agents. So now the agents own the show. Now they've merged with WWE. I mean, it's all designed just to keep as little power in the hands of the
Hmm.
ultimately the
Yeah.
athletes or the performers. 'Cause, wrestling is not a sport. That version of wrestling is not a sport. But the idea is
Yeah.
just to double dip and triple and quadruple dip, like boxing used to do when the mob ran it, but more so. The splits are worse and that's why boxing is the place to go. That's why people want to box Canelo, not the other way around. What does he care about mixed rules?
Yeah.
Canelo, you want to go fight for $500,000 and wear a uniform and be treated like a bitch? No, no. Why would he do that? So, boxing is still the
Yeah.
king of combat sports. It's just
It
how it is.
is, and it will be for a long time still. I think. I don't know if it will ever change, but yeah. I mean, boxing has such a long history and such a great history also, and MMA can never compete with that. I don't know. So there's a certain prestige connected to boxing that isn't really connected to MMA so much. I would say,
I agree.
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of money in both, and UFC specifically because of their market share and their contracts and how low they've squeezed the revenue share down to. They're
yeah, and the
huge. They're more
fighters,
profitable than everyone. But as far as actually the money for the athletes and the overall money moving
yeah,
around, boxing's in charge.
yeah, and the UFC. I mean, you always hear about their fighters complaining about not getting enough money, not getting paid enough, and of course that must be true. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
that's
also there are a lot of combat sports and disciplines that where boxing isn't the natural progression. That's where the money is. So your
yeah,
wrestlers, your judoka, even like ex NFL players and things like that. Like, where can you go? Well, your skill set kind of mixed rules is a better place. If you can wrestle, if you can grab a guy, if you do something you've done in the past, boxing is a different kind of thing, and
mm,
there's a big support structure for it. Amateur, and there's this rich
yeah,
history and all these all-time great martial artists who've fought
mm,
under that discipline going back generations and generations. I spend my time about 120 years ago, most of it. All these
yeah.
great
There are
fighters, just
all these
incredible.
commissions and organizations. It's just such a vast network. I mean, boxing network is so much more vast than MMA.
Yeah, bro.
Surely,
And it
yeah,
feels like, like just socially, like having a fair go, like you stay on your feet, you throw hands, if the guy falls down, you get back up and you keep having it.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
something rooted in modern society where I think that's just inherently appealing, where it's a very clean version of something that's simulating warfare.
yeah,
And so
yeah. I
the
think
pageantry and the ceremony and the national anthems, all the different things they do to sort of civilize just what is basically something you could just do in your backyard. People do.
yeah. I mean, MMA got really big the last kind of decade, especially. I think. I mean, yeah, 10, 15 years or so. It wasn't that big before, because the world is, an effed up place, and the toxic masculinity culture, all that, I think plays into it. So that's
I
why it's
agree.
so popular now. People don't want to see two guys who are doing this. Want to see guys do, like, strangle it, like hold each other in a chokehold, and just bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, there are probably parallels. Like Texas Hold'em became a huge thing back in the day, like it just exploded onto the scene, and but then some people went to like a game called Omaha where the stakes are higher, mistakes and good play. Like there's a lot more going on, a lot more factors. And I think part of the appeal of mixed rules is there's so many factors in this version of combat,
Hmm.
especially in Japan, where if you knock a guy down, you just go ahead and kick him right on in the head. You don't have to
Oh
wait till he
man,
gets up. You just throw the kick. You can knee him in the head.
yeah,
But
so
people train for
brutal.
this. They train for this. So it's not like they don't see it coming. They know it's coming and it changes
Hmm.
positionally. It changes the battle if you
Yeah,
don't have to worry about a guy's hands being down. So, but
that's where it
also,
started. That's where MMA started in Japan, right? This pancrase stuff, and yeah, whatever.
yeah, and in the 2000s, it was huge over there. But
Yeah,
compared to today, not a lot of events, but gigantic. Some of the events were absolutely gigantic, massive, massive crowds for
yeah,
some of
but
them. And great fighters, but mixed rules is pretty awesome. And the machine is very powerful now, the money making machine for the main promotion, UFC, but
hmm,
structurally for the athletes. I mean, a lot of people, if you can throw hands, you should be dreaming about being a boxer, not an MMA fighter, because you want those Fury paydays. You don't want those Nagano before he got away from the UFC paydays. Why
yeah,
fight? Why dream about $500,000 when you can dream about 20, 25, 100, whatever he made for this? I mean, someone said, tweeted out, he reportedly made 100 mil on this Fury. I don't know if that's true, but I know the site fee must have been gigantic
hmm,
because the Saudis
yeah,
really wanted to fight. So they were like, we've got tens of millions here for that.
yeah. I mean, they brag always. You see about making more money. I mean, but yeah, that's not really
For
the
them,
truth.
for them,
Yeah,
they
for
get
them.
site fees. They get, 3, 5 million. Sometimes it
Yeah.
gets in the way. They wanted to go to Hawaii. The tourism board wouldn't give them 5 mil. They said that's more than our yearly budget. So they didn't
Hmm.
go. Even though Max Holloway, one of the great fighters, was champ at the time, they just didn't go. They didn't care. So site fees, the UFC makes money off of that. In boxing, it's just a little bit different. The athletes have so much power. I've been on
Yeah.
James Toney's YouTube channel. He's got all his fights on there.
Oh wow.
You won't see that. You won't see that
That's
in anime
one.
because the UFC would take your channel down. They own the footage.
Yeah, that's like the school. I mean, the how do you ever call sensei of boxers? Probably one of the best to watch to learn something. I guess
One of
James
my
Stoney.
favorites. I feel like
Yeah,
I'm watching the old school. Like I like watching Archie more, but yeah, James Toney because the
yeah.
footage is just better quality, the sound, the
Shoulder
commentary, all
roll.
that stuff. So I love seeing
Yeah,
his coolness against the ropes. When these guys back on the ropes, and you see
yeah,
him like he'll just switch his head to the other side, but he knows exactly what's happening, all the angles. And it's
yeah,
it's a guy's trying to take your head off. Some of those opponents are really trying to take his head off, or other ones they were volume fighters, and he
yeah,
was win or lose. I absolutely love watching his fights, especially when he got
yeah.
kind of chubby. Hey, what's up, Rodolfo?
Hey Rodolfo, how are you, friend, buddy?
And you hear in the commentary how they're discussing his gradual move up to heavyweight, the fact that he doesn't fight whole rounds and this,
Yeah,
doubting him again and again. Kind of like
his
late.
chin. His chin was just also out of this world, man. I mean, you saw him fight Samuel Peter. I mean, that guy could fucking punch, and he got hit a lot, but nothing. He went nowhere.
Good stuff. And who was the guy? Was it Jirov? You have a couple
Yeah,
fights against him. I enjoyed that. I think it was the first. Was it the first one where you kind of wore him
he
down?
had he had one only, but it was the
It
fight
was the
of the
one.
year, I believe.
It was
Yeah,
a good
it was.
fight, and it was interesting to see him get tagged so much. And the guy was being so relentlessly aggressive, but he was
Oh yeah,
still cool under fire and investing in the
yeah,
body shots and things. I kind of marvel at that. That's courage under fire. That's some Joe Montana, Tom Brady coolness at the end of the match kind of thing. I just love it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Shiro was just a really tough bastard, the toughest nails, relentless. But yeah, I mean, Tony just kind of, yeah. Well, I would say schooled him. It was a close fight, but it it was his, his skills and all that that really made him win that fight. And yeah, of course.
I watched that a couple weeks ago. I think yeah, and it's also like the guy was there's a certain thing about volume. Like if you're it is still possible to get tired if the guy's good at taking what you can deliver and glancing a lot of it off. Tony rolls. He rolled like a just a brilliant
Yeah,
guy. So maybe certain style matchups, that kind of technique, some guys could navigate it better than others, but other people really struggle because you'd almost get lulled into this like you're in an offensive mindset, and then he could explode with power. And I love seeing that
and,
in his fights. Like he's shot guys. You could be ahead, but you could never just take it easy. You can never just forget who you're fighting.
and you know what's interesting? It was actually both of theirs last cruiserweight fight for a long time. I mean, also Giro went up to heavyweight after that, but that wasn't really a good thing for him because he
He
never
didn't do
was.
good up there.
Yeah, not really. I mean, yeah, he lost to a couple. I mean, I know Michael Moore knocked him out. In the yeah, I didn't see that fight, but I heard that Giro was winning, but that just got knocked out with a big punch, got caught in
Was it
ninth
perhaps that
round.
he didn't necessarily have the power up at heavyweight
Yeah,
to
and
make the guys
wasn't
respect him?
really big, really that muscular, wasn't a huge, he wasn't that too tall either. But anyway, wasn't the main problem. I think it was he didn't have the big punch for that. Yeah, for a heavyweight, and
Yeah, shows you how
yeah,
special someone like Holyfield was, or some of these other guys, Ezra Charles, guys who go up and
yeah,
they get up there, and there's still Archie Moore himself. Like there's a famous photo of Moore and Sonny Liston, and the size of their fists, the difference in the
yeah,
size of their fists, ignoring everything else, because Moore had a respectably sized head. He had a big
yeah.
noggin,
Moore
but
was.
the size of their fists, and you think about the different concussive force. I'm sure Foreman, I'm sure there are photos of him with other guys, and you'd be like, holy cow. But skill and
Yeah,
speed and technique, I love seeing that first. I think it was the first Sharky fight with Primo Carnera, and you see Sharky doing almost like the Floyd Patterson, like dipping down, then coming up sometimes the body, sometimes the head with those vicious hooks. But he's
yeah,
using the speed. He's
Sharky.
slipping off the line and countering and just beautifully. And I love seeing that in Tony fights, although he wasn't quite as dynamic. He always seemed very relaxed, over relaxed at times. But I love seeing that slipping off the line and landing when the guy's overextended, when he's really vulnerable, right in the right spot. You gotta love that
Mm,
kind of science.
yeah, Jack Sharky was really. I mean, yeah. I think too many more people should know about him. I mean, watch him also fight. He definitely was. Yeah, one of the best of the 30s. I think best heavyweights of the 30s.
Yeah, it's fun. That's
Definitely.
fight specifically, which is on YouTube, the Sharky Carnera fight. For me, a very, very enjoyable watch because you're thinking about the size difference, the difference in like not just the
Yeah,
reach and the overall weight, but the size of the rib cage and shoulders that are propelling Carnera's punches.
Carnera was. Yeah, he was just a giant. I mean, yeah. Forget about it. He was a big guy in all ways.
Let me ask you. Okay, let me ask something because he was active during the years. I wasn't really paying attention, but the Valuev guy, remember the enormous dude?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course, yeah,
So,
yeah.
from what you've seen of Carnera compared to Valuev, who was the more coordinated big guy? Would you say? Do you have,
I
if
think
there's any opinion to be had?
Carnera. I mean, it Flale was slow as fuck, man. He was really slow, and yeah, his punches you could see them coming from a mile away. So yeah, he would have never been a world champion had that. I think probably that was the weakest heavyweight era of all times, probably in between 2004 and 2010, something like that, when he was champion. Yeah,
Were
I
there a
think
bunch
he,
of different title holders at that time? There usually
yeah,
are, but was it especially fractured then?
yeah, it was. I mean, I mean, Vitalik. There were, of course, the Klitschko's, but even, I mean, Vladimir, suffered those two losses to Corey Sanders and Lehman Brewster, and yeah, then both those guys also later lost their titles, and so it was a lot of different champions, short space of time. Chagayev, he beat Valuev actually. Also a guy who was like 6'1", maybe. I don't know if he's that tall. Almost a foot shorter than Valuev, but he just boxed and danced and moved around. He made it look easy. Ruslan Chagayev. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I've heard of him, but I don't know if I've seen his fights. If I have, it's incidental because I was binge watching one of his opponents. But
Yeah,
I've
he
been on that.
was
I
good.
mean, Tony had a lot of fights, so I'm still going through
Oh
in the
yeah,
time that I
like
have. It's
what's
easy to
his
listen to
record?
things, but to watch them, it takes some time for me,
His
obviously.
record is like 70 something wins, right? Or and like I don't know, 8 losses or something. It's really quite amazing for a fighter of this century. I mean, really.
Certainly. And when he's clearly not the man he was, at least his attributes have changed. He was still able to fight at a world class level, which is
Yeah,
fantastic. It reminds me of Sam Langford's career, where even when he was half blind and he was 20 pounds or more overweight, and he's already a short guy, he still won most of his fights. And he's a cyclops. He's a fat cyclops. Not to sound dismissive, obviously, of someone I respect, but if you were talking in just very generic terms, he has no business
right.
fighting. He wouldn't even be cleared today, but he's still winning most of his fights, a lot of them by knockout. Tony, maybe not as much concussive power, but when
Yeah,
he got really old and he was like, he can't even talk right, and he's obviously not the same person he was. He's been
well,
through a lot. Still at a world class level at the Holyfield. Holy cow! It's incredible. It's so fun to watch, and you'd be like, is this guy just completely insane, or is he a mad genius, or both?
yeah. And yeah, I really love watching their fight also, even though Holyfield was already kind of old, and but that was a really exciting fight, Tony. I mean, who could have thought that Tony would have been able to stop Holyfield? I mean, come on, ever like.
Yeah. And who like I love listening to Larry Merchant.
Yeah, yeah, me
I
too.
didn't always, but I heard later that he was like a sort of a literary person. His focus was so, and then I started to be like, okay, so let me listen to all these references he's dropping in his commentary, and now I enjoy it so much more. So as I've been listening back to this stuff, I love hearing his takes. And at times, if you listen, like when Big George was making his comeback, yo, dude was harsh. He was harsh. He kept doubting, but he did give credit after the fact. But yeah, Merchant wasn't a guy
Yeah,
where like, oh, he won, everything's great, this is an all-time great. He would
he
always be
he
pretty
was
critical.
hilarious. He was hilarious. I mean, I love when he said he interviewed Hopkins after he fought this guy, this nobody,
Oh
from
yeah, he was asking about a big fight, and Hopkins is like,
yeah,
well, it's a business. We'll see what they have to
yeah,
say. That's a great interview. That's a great interview.
yeah,
He's like,
and
how long
and
are people
then
going to pay to watch this?
yeah, and
Wow.
then Larry said, "Well, it seems tonight you got paid for doing not much, but that was
Right.
so funny."
Well, I like
Yeah,
that. I like that though, because it comes back to what I was saying earlier. Guys are going to go for the easier money a lot of the time, but they shouldn't be
yeah,
able to do it in a vacuum. If there are people who are supposed to be commenting on what's happening, they should have these opinions. I think it's entirely appropriate because a lot of fans are going to be like in that mindset. They need a voice. We
mm,
can't be ringside to be like, what is this matchup and why was this a pay per view? I don't know if that fight was on pay per view or not, but in general, they need a voice, and so the commentary should sometimes reflect that. One thing about MMA is it doesn't have this rich history of the commentary team just absolutely going off on a bad decision in a way that talking about how it affects the sport and the credibility of the entire game. And there are so many
yeah,
great videos on YouTube of that happening. Big George, I'm trying to remember the last one I saw. It was one of the Tony fights I was watching, but I can't remember which one. But there once Merchants had some real rants about that, about judging and things like that, corruption or bad decisions.
yeah.
I think that's healthy too.
He did. Oh man, I'm just trying to remember. Yeah, there was also when he was like. He was kind of down on Lennox Lewis also, after the Vitali fight. That was also kind of fun. He was like very confrontational. Lewis got
What was the issue? What was the issue?
pissed. No, I think Lewis had made some comments before the fight like that Vitali wasn't in his league and stuff like that, and then Larry just said, you said he couldn't compete with you. You said he had no skill level. What do you say now? And he always goes, well, he can compete with me. Why not? He can, but it got very defensive. But look what I did to his face, and the fight should have been over anyway soon. They hadn't stopped it, and
That's
then he said,
funny.
"What are you saying, Larry?" And Larry just nothing really, nothing. That was funny. Yeah,
That's making its rounds on the internet now because Fury was kind of saying that about Ngannou. I can't remember the exact analogy, Tiddlywinks, or one of these. You'll get so there's those memes are springing up out of that because he was being so dismissive, and then it's a highly competitive fight. Some people even
mm,
thought he shouldn't have won. So now he's
yeah,
sort of opened himself up for that. Although afterwards, he was clever enough to give a lot of credit after the fight, so he maybe took the edge off
yeah.
of that. But some people don't care about the after the fight stuff.
Yeah, he attracts a lot of naturally. He's that kind of guy who attracts a lot of criticism, a lot of hate also, and some love. Love you either love him, or really like him, or respect him, or you don't at all. You don't like him at all. So I'm kind of divided. I used to like him after he came back, and the Wilder fights, but then by now, I think I got a little started to, he has started to annoy me a little bit now. This not fighting certain guys, the Usyk
Well,
or
I think that's it.
Joshua.
And the whole like
Yeah,
10 days for Joshua to sign a half filled out contract to
yeah,
make a fight that obviously the both parties got to make all these tens of millions of dollars work in every direction. To me,
yeah,
that's embarrassing. I'm like, don't say you want the fight if you're going to cancel it out. It's too overt. It's too blatant and cynical. And so for me, I'm
yeah.
just like, all right, you big baby, just whatever, just go do what you're going to do. And I'll,
And
to the degree I even talk about it, I'll call it like I see it. And that's
and
whatever, it's a business, but
yeah, it's
we don't call McDonald's fine cuisine because they make all those billions of dollars. We don't
yeah,
give them that pass just because they make money. And
yeah,
combat sports is like that. Mayweather, that win over McGregor, some people don't even want to consider it a boxing match because it's like the guy's a rookie,
mm,
a pot shot MMA, a champion MMA fighter, but a pot shotting fighter and a rookie. And you're going to go school him, obviously, which a lot of people enjoyed, but let's not call it high level.
yeah. That was another just circus fight. Yeah,
Yeah. But
I didn't
to his
even watch
credit,
it, but yeah,
I watched it after. I wasn't going to pay for it, but
yeah,
well, I watched part of it during actually because someone where I was living, one of the neighbors was watching it, and one of them was an MMA fan who thought McGregor was going to win. I felt bad for him. The MMA media kind of oversold the odds. To
yeah. I
Nagano's
knew he
credit, though, he
wasn't.
actually made a real competitive fight. He took it way more seriously and
Yeah.
had a much better skill set, surprisingly.
Yeah, he was a lot. Even though he officially didn't get it, you can also make an argument, maybe. Some people say, yeah, Fury deserved to win, but still, he was far closer to winning than McGregor was to beating Mayweather, of course.
Yeah,
So,
McGregor was beat. Mayweather was
yeah,
walking him down and mugging for the camera and doing his Jack Johnson, just schooling this dude
yeah,
who's just not on his level for his entertainment. Then probably, he knew where his buddies bet for the finish and he turned it up. Was it the ninth?
mm,
He turned it up and took him out in the 10th. As soon as he
yeah,
turned it all the way up, it was over. The ref was like, okay, you're done with him.
mm,
Quickly,
yeah.
finally
I
finish
mean,
playing with your food. But some people, they love that. They enjoy the fact that he's schooling him so much and making such easy money. And
yeah,
maybe
that,
some of Fury's people thought that was this kind of fight, but Ngannou actually came to actually fight. This wasn't just cashing in. This is a guy on a mission. He's a pretty
yeah,
special
of
athlete. He's
course.
very driven.
You cannot have a fight like that. Same would have happened. If it had been an MMA fight, then we know what would have happened. McGregor would have smashed Mayweather, of course, to the camp. Would have just choked him out and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
it would have been as short as McGregor wanted it to be. If you
yeah,
just come underneath, low ankle pick. How much time in how many times is in his adult life has Mayweather had someone do a low ankle pick on him or a knee tap
yeah,
takedown or even just some kind of Greco throw? He's got the ref doesn't jump in, so You look over at the
exactly.
ref, and now you're on your back getting elbowed. Okay, how many times has someone elbowed you in the face, and you can't get up? You have to get yourself up. I mean, it would be
Mm,
vicious. But I don't expect a boxing expert to be an MMA expert. It's a different kind of sport. They're
yeah, of
related, but
course.
if you go to the NFL, it doesn't mean you can go play rugby.
That's why I wonder why they now start. I mean, have what's his name? What's his name? Ariel Helwani doing boxing also, like boxing commentary. What the hell was that all about? I don't
Yeah,
know which. Yeah,
he's a.
what?
I don't want to be negative on the show. I don't, he's done some good interviews. He's a talented
Yeah,
interviewer. I'll give him that and leave it at that.
yeah, but it is hardly a boxing, really qualified for boxing.
No, what's that dude who rolls with Luke Thomas? They have a show.
I
Brian
don't know really. But,
Callen or something.
oh yeah, Brian Callen. You mean that
Isn't it?
guy?
Wasn't he a boxing guy?
I don't know. I think he's like more MMA. I mean, he is
He's
friends
been.
with Brandon Shaw. Brian
Oh,
Callen.
well, he's been doing when he came into MMA like with the show with Luke. Yeah, he had some man. He's all laughing at a Kyoji Haraguchi fight. He was one of the best bantamweight fighters of his generation, 135 pounds in MMA, and kind of laughing at a fight in Japan because he didn't know the opponents, couldn't say his name or something, like being really dismissive of this world class guy who trains at the best gym in the world and is respected across the sport. And it's like, dude, do your homework, man. He had to apologize for that shit. We were ripping him
Yeah,
apart
right.
because, like, what are you doing? Why are you throwing shade on this guy just because it's funny to you, you idiot? I still haven't
Yeah,
forgiven him entirely. I don't like that, man, because more people see the diss than see the retraction.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Really, I don't follow MMA. As I said, have seen a fight now and then. Some of them have maybe even been exciting to watch, but at the end, it's never gonna be my game. And yeah, boxing is always gonna be, of course,
I
a
feel you, brother.
lot more important to me and a lot bigger to me. And yeah, so
Yeah, and
that's
I'm sort of in a transitional period because it seems like the days of Bellator MMA, that promotion might be numbered, and I've been
mm,
following them like a laser since 2014. And if they do end up closing, or I don't know what MMA is going to have to keep my interest because my boxing research has got me more and more fascinated with the fistic endeavors specifically. And
yeah,
so but I had a transitional period before in the early mid 2000s. I was more of a kickboxing fan. MMA won me over when a lot of the great
oh yeah,
kickboxers moved to MMA. They took
yeah.
me with them.
I
So
kind
we'll
of
see.
like kickboxing. It's probably my second favorite combat sport. I mean, yeah,
Yo, Pads
probably.
is right. Krokop was my guy. And then a
Oh
Russian
yeah,
fighter, the greatest ever, Fedor Emelianenko, a Sambo, primarily Sambo and judo stylist. He
Crow
beat
Cup is
Krokop in the
actually,
epic
yeah,
fight.
he's my kind of a countryman, you might say. I mean, we are both from former Yugoslavia. He's from Croatia. I'm from Bosnia. So yeah, he actually comes from a town not far from Bosnia, from the border.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, great
Mm,
fighter. Probably the greatest southpaw in mixed rules history. I mean, certainly at heavyweight, I wouldn't put anyone above him. That
mm.
kick
Yeah. Wow.
straight,
When
and
he,
the fight with Fedor, the 2005 fight they had, that was the fight of the decade in MMA. It was in the ring under the Pride rules. So at the time, that's where you can, if you get knocked down, you can't be like, my hand's down. You can't knee and kick me in my face. And it was a great
yeah,
fight. It was truly, and Fedor notably stood for most of the fight with Krokop and basically
yeah.
kickboxed him and bullied him. And it was the most incredible thing. I still get a thrill thinking about it.
My favorite, I think, Crow Cup knockout was when he knocked out that guy Wanderlei Silva. Yeah,
It was a
in
fantastic head
the
kick.
rematch. Yeah, wow, man, just open a wound here in his head. It was scary.
My favorite was over Fedor's brother, Alexander Emelianenko. That was a
Oh
great head
yeah,
kick. But he had
yeah,
so
yeah,
many. He was, by the way, Pads asked if I remember Kevin Randleman spiking Fedor on his head. Yes, the Randleplex. He had him in a sort of body lock from behind and jumped up and landed on him, drove all his force. Fedor landed on his neck. Within 40 seconds, he had reversed the position and submitted Randleman.
yeah. That's what Fedor was just
Randleman
what.
knocked out Krokop with a beautiful, I think it was a left
Yeah,
hook, the
yeah. I've
first
seen that.
first time
Yeah,
they fought.
Yeah, it was a left hook. Then he just kind of pounded away until it. Yeah, but I think Krukap won the rematch. I'm not sure how.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like he might have. I can't
sure.
remember. It might have been
Maybe
like an arm
submission.
triangle or something. I
Yeah,
can't. Some kind of.
yeah,
I can't remember. I haven't seen that fight in a long time. But the first one I've seen more recently. Yeah, the first one was. I think he went down like he was going to shoot for a takedown. Shoot for the legs, and then
yeah.
swam up with a left hook. Beautiful move.
Those are yeah the Nogueira brothers. That's right. But Rodrigo was the better one. Really clearly, that
Big
he was
Nog. I
called
get their names confused,
Minotaur.
but Big Nog was the better one. He was the top heavyweight in the world when Fedor dethroned him. So that's partly what made
Yeah,
Fedor the top heavyweight,
the,
certainly, but
the
arguably the top fighter in the whole sport was beating Big Nog.
yeah he was so fucking skilled. I mean the way he would. I watched his fight with Bob Sapp. I mean that guy.
He should have
He's
died, but he didn't, and he won
yeah.
instead. I don't think he ever quite physically recovered from that fight, though.
I mean, how he got under him and just reversed the whole thing. I mean, that guy is not human. Minotaur, they call
Yeah,
him. Yeah,
yeah, and he stayed great. He was even great long past his prime when he got to the UFC. He was still like a world class level fighter, even though he was not what he once was.
yeah.
So just like in boxing and MMA, guys can get older and still be the best. So when they get
Hmm.
dethroned, it doesn't necessarily mean that they would have lost 3 or 5 years earlier. Time spares
Yeah,
nobody. It's just time is uneven in how it applies its attrition. Some guys age
yeah,
well, some guys don't age well at all. Some guys are old in their 20s. Some guys like Archie Moore, his fight prime might have happened in his very late 30s, where
yeah,
the overlap between his skill and his physical acumen were at their peak combined. It's hard to say. Archie was great for years before that, but the experience added up and
yeah.
adding some
That's
more weight
weird.
to his frame. It's hard to say. When was Tony's prime? Because I mean, some of his best wins happened when he was clearly not in good shape physically.
Yeah,
I feel
and
like,
Hopkins, the same thing. I mean, you can say he was best like between the age of 35 and 45, something like that.
right?
Yeah.
And one of my dudes, Calzaghe, his greatest performances, he had ruined hands. And in the Jeff Lacey masterclass, he had an actual wrist injury,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
that was it.
yeah,
That might have been the best he ever was. I know he was a guy who like fought up to the level of his competition. People would say that a lot in his career. But for
yeah.
me,
That
that was
fight.
that he might have been his best in that fight, even though physically he wasn't there. But his
Yeah,
actual how tuned in he was like he was definitely a chess versus checkers kind of fight. I love that fight. I've seen that
yeah.
probably 50 or more times at least.
Lacey was never the same after that. I mean, he wasn't in the fight at all. You might say, you can say, he was just dominated from start to finish.
Yeah. If you see the recap, the English uh, accent recap where they talk about it, like in the lead up, you can see Lacey's like overconfident. His coach
Yeah,
Dan
he's gonna
Birmingham's giving
knock
him a
out.
bit. He's like talking him up in front of the press, and Jeff's just sitting there soaking up the praise and stuff. Calzaghe had quite a bit of focus. There were a few fights he had less performed. He had stuff going on in his life, but like in general, he was very focused, very disciplined. Because he was a big
Yeah,
guy for 168. When he moved up to 175, he wasn't small.
yeah, he
It was
was
like,
like,
oh, that's where he belonged. He had a lot of discipline. But yeah,
hmm,
like you said, so like late career, Calzaghe looked fantastic, even though physically he wasn't what he was. I'm sure there are a lot of fighters Jimmy
yeah,
McLaren went out on a great win, right?
he was never really a super like how to say ripped guy or anything. Kosagi, he was just very
Big frame,
talented. Yeah, big
lots
frame,
of
kind of.
cardio, and a
Yeah,
brilliant dad who like Joe, for what his dad was doing with the jazz, like the music, like the jazz timing, broken rhythm, the sense of the
yeah.
overarching, like, now it's the chorus, now we bing, bang. And so, yeah,
That's
a lot of
that's
Calzaghe
why
fights, a
it's
lot of those stoppage wins are like Led Zeppelin tunes, whisper to scream.
oh Alexander, hello, my friend Campbell. I mean, that's why it was so silly. Somebody once mentioned about. I mean, they speculated Kazagi had taken steroids. Like, did he look to you like he was on steroids? I mean, there are no like six pack and all that big packs. No, none of that.
Right. You also see
When
he's
you
aged
take,
well. A lot of these guys
yeah,
who take steroids, they lose all their hair too young, and they get
yeah. I mean,
boobs when they get older if they don't start taking estrogen blockers and things. They just You can see that
Right.
they've ravaged their hormonal system. Kawasaki just looks like a dude, man. He looks like what he is.
Yeah,
So
just a
I wouldn't think
normal,
of him as as one of those kind of athletes, but also he famously trained for cardio and pace. It wasn't like, how can this guy
yeah.
possibly pull this off? You see him, he's like jogging through the Welsh countryside,
Oh
focused,
yeah.
speed, lightning jab. One of my favorites, probably my favorite modern boxer, but one of my favorites also to watch, maybe tied with James Toney at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you had guys that were just looked kind of, not very in shape, and he was like running 30 minutes on a treadmill at least and stuff like that, running, as you said, the countryside, and yeah, just
He looks like an endurance athlete. He
very
has the build of a
dedicated.
triathlete or something.
Yeah. He just took it so seriously. You can see it. He took it very seriously because he knew that's what he was best at.
Yeah, and
That,
it's a shame that he didn't get the Roy Jones Jr. fight earlier in his career, although because
yeah.
now people won't know what would happen in their primes. Although it was fun.
Yeah, he didn't get
Both were older. He was actually about to retire, so I mean, Jones kept fighting, but so I don't know who was more past it. They were
yeah,
both
he
past
didn't
it,
get
but
the full didn't get the full credit. Didn't get much credit at all, actually, I think. For that, everybody, well, oh,
he made
Jones
a lot
is,
of people in the U.S. very salty. Same with the Hopkins
yeah,
fight. They're like, "Oh,
yeah,
there's no way he won that fight." It's like he literally
yeah.
won that fight. Especially look at the end of like Hopkins
He
wasn't
did.
having fun in there, even though he was brilliant. He wasn't having fun in there.
No, no,
That
no, no.
wasn't a fun fight for him. So it was close enough. You can't say
Joe,
obviously he won the fight. He literally lost the fight. Like with Nagano, he didn't obviously win the fight. He literally lost on points, and it was close
yeah.
enough that it's not. It's just what it is, man. If you
I
don't
mean,
want
I
to go to
know.
the cards, knock the guy out.
Yeah, it took Americans a long time to really, many, I mean, to admit that Joe did really, in fact, win that fight. I mean, many started, saying after they would see it again, watch the whole thing, and yeah, maybe he did actually win this fight. You gotta be
Yeah.
honest. So,
I think also Hopkins did so much better than a lot of his opponents because of his skill set. Hopkins' specific way of slowing a fight down gave him trouble. This happened with Sam Langford, Jack Johnson,
yeah.
and young Peter Jackson back to back. Well, young Peter Jackson was a very good grappler, very good. He wasn't in certain circles on the West Coast. He wasn't very popular when he went over there because he could slow a fight down so much. He was so good at it. Same with Jack Johnson when he wanted to. But this was
Mm,
amid Langford getting the best of really dangerous fighters, and he went on to not, after the Jackson loss to not lose until
mm,
years later, 35 fights later. So it's like certain guys can do so. Hopkins did really well in that fight. It's a frustrating fight for me to watch, but because you'd be like, oh, if you weren't doing all this stuff, it wouldn't even be close. But of course, he knew how
yeah.
to edge, like ride on the edge of the rules. Certain guys, whether it's leading with the head, some guys are real experts at leading with the head. And I'm trying to think who was Tony was fighting, and they just kept warning the other guy, but didn't take. I don't think they ended up taking a point. Was it the Holyfield fight?
I don't think so.
But
Uh,
Holyfield's a guy sometimes, the way he's punching. We saw Fury throw an elbow, a vertical
yeah.
elbow down through the guard, and that's an old school trick. That's like a Rocky and Tyson type move. Like, oh, I'm just throwing tight hooks. It's like your
Mm,
elbow's going further out than your fist did. I don't know. That's bit on the edge.
yeah. Exactly. I mean, Mr. Pat said, yeah, of course he was. I mean, he was going to dominate Palik because Palik was a brawler, a puncher. He was never a boxer in that sense. So yeah, and there was a lot of experience on Hopkins' side, of course. So Palik was kind of, he never should have taken that fight. Yeah, but fortunately for him, it wasn't at 160, so he got to keep the titles. So.
What they fought like a catchweight or 168.
Yeah, or 168 maybe, something like that, yeah. Probably, yeah. I mean, he had fought Jermaine Taylor the second time, Pavlik, at 168 already, so yeah. He was a big middleweight, of course, very tall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you see that guys when they've crunched themselves down, and when they go up a class, they don't necessarily always even look smaller than their opponents, even if their career fill in the blank weight. Like it's just some guys they when they fill out or when they don't have to cut, we see how much they go through. Because
yeah,
after McGregor, when he he won the featherweight championship. Like, he was a skeleton in the weigh-ins, right? When he moved up to lightweight, he just looked like a guy cutting normal weight like everyone else, instead of like destroying his kidneys, borrowing from the kidney bank for when he's older.
Yeah, just amazing how some fighters can go through these weight classes. Guillermo Jones, him, heard of him?
Wait, who's that?
The Guillermo Jones.
No, I'm not familiar.
He was from Panama. He was like first actually welterweight, but then he ended up as a cruiserweight world champion in the end.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
who are some
he
other
was
guys?
very tall, but at first he was skinny, obviously. But then he just started, building up, and yeah,
Like, well, Tommy Hearns had a frame to put on size.
yeah. This guy was 6'4", actually.
Holy
Imagine
cow. Okay, so he was a
that.
beanpole, and then over time, he just got bigger and bigger. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And then just later he finished at heavyweight, actually, in the end. So
I wonder how
he
I
was,
wonder how young he was when he boxed. Because some guys, they
I
grow into
think,
their debut weight class, but they're already boxing maybe as amateurs or something in the lower weights. Whereas in the decades back, some of those guys that would all be professional. Like if you start
I
at age
mean,
16 as a welterweight and you end up at light
yeah,
heavy, that's more understandable. And if you start at 25 as a welter,
he fought quite a long time. I think he started out 21 or something. He was 21 when he first started as a pro, and then I think, finished at, well, he was close to 40, I think, anyway. Or maybe he
that's
was 40.
that's a very
Yeah.
impressive leap. Then if he was already 21,
Yeah, so they called him the incredible expanding man because of this. Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. I mean, you should check him out. He was a really good fighter. I mean, also he was just very, how to say. I think in a certain way, Bakoli reminds me of him because they are both big guys. I mean, and when he was a cruiserweight, Jones was a big guy, really, and he just could land those punches like with ease. It looked easy, when he fought, just the way
Tell
he
me his name
landed.
one more time, so I remember it.
Yeah, I'm gonna write it here in the chat so
Okay,
it's
cool. Yeah, and
easy.
I come back and find it.
Like
Good stuff.
Guillermo. They say in Spanish. Jones.
Guillermo.
He's
Yeah, I'm not sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's. I mean, more people should know of him. Obviously, not many enough. No, I mean, except those who, of course, follow the boxing a lot when he was champion and all that. Yeah, he actually did beat what's his name, Lebedev. But then he was found dirty. You know, he tested positive for some kind of banned substance. Yeah,
Interesting.
that's right. He fought Johnny Nelson. That was a robbery. He was robbed. That was, I believe, a draw. Was it? Yeah, probably. He ended a draw, but he should have won Jones that fight. So I actually haven't seen it yet, but everybody is saying that Jones got robbed anyway. And knowing Johnny Nelson, he could be very like hot and cold. Yeah. Well, I think that is enough for this
That's a
time.
lot of talking. I got to get ready for
Yeah,
work. I can't thank you enough for having me on, though,
thank
brother.
you.
That's great talking to you. Thank you for filling in some of the blanks, man. My boxing knowledge is mostly blanks, so this has been great. I got some new
Yeah,
guys to check out.
that's great, really. I mean, and thank you a lot. Thank you very much for coming on. And yeah, all right.
Yeah, shout out to
So
Josh City 8
yeah,
from here on the 86 Boxer channel. Big up, Josh. We'll be talking to you later in the next week, I'm sure.
yeah. Have a good one, Josh, and everybody else. Right.
Thanks for having
Ciao.
me on, Buzz. Later. Peace,
Later.
everybody.
Peace. Yes. All right. 1 hour 49 minutes. Holy crap! That was a far longer than I expected to stream. Well, I was lucky to have such a good guest. Yeah. All right. Next week I'll be back with Josh, so Josh will be back. All right, see you. Until then, ciao.